Yo, imagine not subscribing. Yo, what is going on, my nameless kingdom? It is your nameless king, and I am back again for some more One Punch Man Destiny. Now today I wanted to do something pretty simple and something that I also haven't really seen done that much, and that is the top 10 classes in the game. Now funny enough, I'm pretty sure there are only 10 classes in the game right now, so I'm basically just going to be ranking all the classes that we have in the game. And before we get started, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to stay tuned for more content, because I do post daily. Now, for those of you who want to know what I am grading the classes on, I'm basically grading them on 3 different categories, that being damage, defense, and their difficulty or easiness to use when it comes to grinding or in battle in the game. So that is the grading scale that I'm using to grade these, and I feel like these things have merit, especially coming from me, considering I am someone who has put many hours into the game with each and every class to get where I am today in the game, which is very, very shy of the leaderboard. So I think that what I have to say can almost be pretty much confirmed. Alright, so the way that I wanted to do these was to go ahead and just tell y'all from bottom to top which classes I think are the worst to the best. Now, I'm not trying to say that just because a class is number 10 it means it's terrible. I'm just saying that compared to the rest that it would be number 10. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and just list all of them, just so I can, spare some of y'all time, because I know some of y'all may not want to watch a full 10-minute video. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and tell y'all my list in full, and then right after I tell y'all the list, I will go into further depth with each and every class from top to bottom. So we'll start by naming the classes from bottom to top, and then we will name all the classes and go in depth from top to bottom afterwards. So let's get right into it. Number 10, I have Alien. Number 9, I have Cyborg. Number 8, I have Superhuman. Number 7, I have Watchdog. Number 6, I have Esper. Number 5 is Ninja. Number 4 is Darkesper. Number 3 is MetalBat. Number 2 is PrePre, and number 1, of course, is Phoenix. So those are my rankings for all the classes from the 10th place all the way to the 1st place. Now we're gonna go in order from top to bottom why I think that these classes are the way that they are. Now remember that I am ranking these on damage, as in their total overall DPS, their defense comboed with the damage, as well as how easy or how hard they are to use when it comes to you grinding from low levels to high levels. I'll also, while I'm explaining these, show some of the abilities of all of the classes. So off of the top, I'm pretty sure that Phoenix was going to be pretty obvious that it was number 1, considering it is currently the only legendary class in the game that we have, meaning it is the hardest class to get. It's about a 1 out of 1,000 chance, but which is borderline unfair when it comes to the casual players of this game, but it is a class nonetheless, so I had to add it in the list. So it's number 1 mainly because of its damage. For me, I think that the total damage of each class is the most important, with defense being a close second, depending on which way you prefer to grind. So I'm pretty sure that Phoenix, in comparison to all the other classes, is by far the most damaging class. Each attack is also extremely useful because of how long range they are, that coupled with it being extremely easy to use when you're grinding because of flight. And the reason why I put this class's flight above the other classes that have flight, being Darkesper and Esper, is because with Phoenix, the flight does not drain stamina at all. The other classes, Darkesper and Esper, they do drain your stamina quite a bit, and then that coupled with the awakening can drain your stamina even more, which makes them a little bit more difficult to use when you're just trying to grind. You're not trying to worry about that. Or if you're trying to run away, you can recover your stamina while you're running away using your flight. So that makes Phoenix extremely easy to use. You can use it at very long range if you want, but it's also really good at close range too, because it just has overall high damage in general, and each of their attacks have a strong AoE effect. So even if you're not very accurate, at point blank, when it comes to those attacks, when they explode, they're going to hit them for about the same amount anyways. It doesn't have to be on contact. Now, another reason why Phoenix is also number 1 is because of its awakening. Now, not only do you only have to worry about its awakening when it comes to heavily draining your stamina, but the awakening is actually really good. So the awakening gives you a 25% dodge chance and damage reduction, which will save you so much when it comes to you slipping up and actually getting hit by whichever boss that you're fighting at the time. And of course the main thing when it comes to Phoenix class is it really just doesn't have any drawbacks. When it comes to the class as a whole, you just can't think up anything negative when it comes to you listing off everything that Phoenix can do. There's really nothing else that I would add when it comes to it. So if you are lucky enough to ever get to use Phoenix, I would definitely suggest that you, as of right now, never switch off of it. So yeah, that is number 1 at Phoenix. Coming in at number 2, we have PrePre. Now this might be a shock to a lot of people, but for me, when I first used PrePre when it came out, I was very, very much so shockingly surprised. When it comes to its damage, I just feel like personally it's only second to Phoenix. And even if it, by numbers, if you actually calculated it, wasn't second in terms of DPS, it still just works better because of how easy it is to use its main 2 damaging attacks, that being the R attack and the F attack. And when you use these 2, they both give you a 1.2 and 1.6 times multiplier on your normal punch. They also have lower cooldowns. They're not that high. It's not hard to wait 10 seconds for F ability. There's a lot of other classes that take a lot longer than that in terms of cooldown, as well as the fact that both attacks are basically the same, just a small damage increase. Now the reason why this is so good is because you can use your F ability and not have to feel like you're just sitting there waiting so you can deal the final blow with your F ability again, waiting on it to cool down. When you use the F ability, it almost feels like you're just extending it longer when you're using the R ability, which for me tends to be enough to off whichever boss I am fighting. Now the number 1 thing when it comes to these abilities that makes it extremely good with PrePre is the fact that when you use the abilities, they immediately lunge you towards the target and basically like attaches you to it. So you don't really have to worry about you missing. It's very hard to miss the attack with these 2 attacks. Now I have had some cases that I have lost, or that I have lost my target and I did miss by a little bit, but it's very rare for that to happen compared to all the other classes and their abilities in the game. Another reason why I put this class as number 2 is basically personal reasons, because I am more of a in your face type of style fighter when it comes to the game. I tend to feel that whenever you're using the long range classes, it just feels boring because it feels like you're not really getting any action, you're just staying back. But of course it does make sense when it comes to you grinding. So for overall usage of the character, it's obviously extremely easy because you're basically using R and F over and over. By the time R is done, the F is done, and by the time the F is done, the R is ready. And you can just basically cycle between those, and it's very easy to use them. Of course, all you have to do is basically face into the general direction of whatever it is you're fighting, and it'll basically attach itself to it. So R and F is pretty much, those 2 abilities make it extremely easy, as well as the fact that because it is a close range class, it has a lot of damage reduction built into it, as well as the awakening. The awakening gives you a 5% speed boost and a 25% damage reduction, which 25% damage reduction is really good, which is probably what makes Phoenix so good, because it's long range and it has the 25% damage reduction. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the PrePre class, which is currently my favorite class, even though I use Phoenix to grind. PrePre is definitely second in my opinion and my personal favorite. Now, number 3, we have MetalBat. MetalBat used to be my favorite before Phoenix and PrePre came out. Obviously, it went back down to number 2 once PrePre came out, but I still definitely see MetalBat as one of the best classes in the game. It has built-in damage reduction already before you even use your awakening, and when you use your awakening, it stacks an extra 25% on top of the already 75% damage reduction built into MetalBat. Because MetalBat is extremely close range, you definitely are going to have to rely on that damage reduction a lot, as well as your own ability to try to dodge the attacks as you're playing, which can definitely make the difficulty of using MetalBat a little bit on the higher end, especially if you're a lower level. I would say if you're a higher level, using MetalBat is extremely easy, but the lower your level, the harder it'll be to use MetalBat because you have less health and it's harder to have that damage reduction show when you have such little health. Damage reduction doesn't really matter if you have so little health that the boss that you're fighting is just able to overwrite that anyways. Now, when it comes to the abilities themselves are also kind of on the mid to a little bit more difficult side of using. It's not just facing in their general direction. The R ability is a bat throw, and you actually have to aim it really good. The E ability gets easier the higher level you are because the hitbox is a lot wider. But the main 2 abilities you're going to be using when it comes to your damage are the C and the F ability. Those are the ground pound and the grand slam. The ground pound is extremely easy to hit the target with as long as they're not floating or jumping around. So if they're on the ground, you're basically guaranteed to hit them because it spreads out pretty far, has a large area of attack, and the circle is even larger. And the grand slam is even larger when it comes to the area of attack because it just launches a field of smoke around you, and anything inside of that circle is within the hitbox to be damaged. Now, when it comes to the awakening, I already pretty much explained it. It gives you extra damage reduction, and the part of the reason why I put this at number 3 and not Darkesper, because when it comes to them, they're basically tied in terms of their usage and how good they are. But the reason I put MetalBat in the 3rd spot is because I just personally enjoy playing MetalBat more than playing Darkesper, because MetalBat is just a little bit more exciting when you're using it. You have to use your brain a little bit more, and it's just more fun. But that would knock it down by my scaling. If you want to, you could say that MetalBat is 4 and Darkesper is 3, because technically by my grading scale, it is more difficult to use, which would in turn knock it down in terms of usage. But this is my list, so I'm gonna keep him at number 3. Now, like I mentioned at first, number 4 is Darkesper. Now, Darkesper is actually extremely good. Like I said earlier, it would be about tied when it comes to usage with MetalBat. Darkesper, part of what makes it extremely good is the mobility as well as its long rangeness. So having long range and high mobility basically increases your chances of being able to survive whenever you are out grinding, because when you're grinding, you don't want to get hit, because when you get hit, you die, and when you die, you have to respawn, and it takes time. So all you want to do is just hit the enemy as much as possible without getting damaged, and any long range classes allow you to do that. And unfortunately, the flight when it comes to Darkesper does drain your stamina quite a bit, so that can be annoying. The awakening also extremely drains your stamina, so with the flight and the awakening combined, you gotta just hope that you have a lot of stamina. But when it comes to the lower levels, which is what I recommend they use Darkesper with, they definitely would have to watch out for that. When it comes to the attacks, I'm actually not that keen on them. I don't really enjoy using them that much. The Tri-Meteor is pretty fun to use. It also has extremely high AoE. You don't have to worry about aiming it too much, but the E attack is a basic dark ball being thrown. The R attack is extremely difficult to use because you have to be extremely close to them, but Darkesper is a long range class, so it's kind of counterintuitive, because why would you want a move that is close range when Darkesper is a long range class? So you pretty much never use the R ability, but it is there in case you would want to use Darkesper at close range, which is weird because there's literally no damage reduction. And the Hellish Blow attack is probably one of the best attacks in the game. It has a huge pillar just being placed over whichever place you put your marker, and anything inside of it takes a lot of damage. That's pretty much all I got to say for Darkesper. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's up there because it has higher damage than Esper, and it's extremely mobile, and you're able to grind with it pretty easily. So let's go to number 5, which is Ninja. Now, I'm very tempted to put Ninja above Darkesper, mainly because of how many ninjas you will see in each server that you're into. Ninja's extremely popular when it comes to grinding, strictly because of its DPS. Now, it has a lot of pure DPS strictly because of the fact that once you unlock the katana, which is something that you have to get 600, which is something that you need 600,000 agility to get, and you press N, and basically all of your normal attacks are long range abilities now that also do a lot of damage. The only reason I wouldn't put him above Darkesper is because whenever I use him, I pretty much notice that I've noticed that the E, R, and C ability are extremely difficult to use because their hitbox isn't that wide, and you have to couple that with pressing your normal attack while you're running away from him at the same time, and it just makes him more difficult to use overall. Now, he's extremely fun and exciting and fast-paced in terms of use, but obviously with the grading scale I have, difficulty of use, he falls right into that high difficulty in terms of usage, because he's not a brain dead class where you just turn your brain off and just click away like Phoenix is. He's something that you have to think a lot more with, like with MetalBat. You have to constantly run away, slip in and out of attacks, click your mouse, so you click your mouse for your normal attacks, as well as figure out when you should use your R ability, your C, and your F ability, as well as worrying about the stamina decrease because you're spamming all these abilities coupled with the awakening, and that overall just makes it a lot more difficult to use. Now, what I can say about his awakening is that it does give some pretty good buffs. It gives you a 10% damage boost, 15% dodge chance, and 25% speed boost, and you definitely notice it. Like, you're able to move extremely fast, which makes its mobility one of the best in the game because it's basically flight. If you spam the mobility move, you can basically fly across the map with it, so that's also pretty interesting. But yeah, that's why he is number 5. Let's go ahead and move on to number 6. Now, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm basically gonna do number 6 and 7 at the same time, and I'm gonna say that they are pretty much tied, and that is Watchdog and Esper. Now, of course, I already told you about how I like to play the game, so based off of my playstyle, I enjoy Watchdog more, as well as the fact that it gives a lot more damage per second. But Esper is technically would have to be ranked a little bit higher than Watchdog, strictly because flight is the best mobility move in the game, and Esper does have flight, as well as the fact that it is a long-ranged class, which means it is one of those brain dead classes where you basically just get right out of the range of the boss so that they can't hit you, but you can spam all your attacks on it, and it's real easy to use. So based off difficulty to use alone, Esper is or would be ranked as one of the top classes, but because it just lacks in everything else, it just makes it that much more worse in terms of the top classes that I already have set in stone. Now, Watchdog is very interesting because his mobility is also really good. You can basically use that leap ability or the pounce ability, and you can pretty much launch yourself across the entire map. Now, of course, That's not the traditional mobility move that normal classes would have, which would be their Q ability. His Q ability is called Adrenaline, and it just boosts his speed. But when you couple that with the R ability, you're able to launch yourself across basically any section of the map that you want. So that's why I put his mobility as one of the best as well. Just not as good as Esper's because it's literally flight. Now, Watchdog has extremely high damage. I think it's the most damage per single hit in the game in terms of just regular punching. It also has an extremely powerful F ability, which does the same attach like mechanic that PrePre has. It's just not as good because of the cooldown and because it doesn't literally launch you at it. Well, I guess it does, but I don't know. I just feel like PrePre's attach ability is a little bit better. But yeah, those are both Watchdog and Esper. When it comes to those two classes, I would say that if you do have them, it would pretty much be a good idea to roll again. You might want to try for something better like Darkesper, MetalBat, or PrePre. But I also would not be mad if I did get it. It's one of those middling classes that I would consider to be just okay. Now, these last three classes are basically in a league of their own in terms of how bad they are compared to the rest. And it's not their fault. It's basically just because of, they kind of had to be the way they are to mimic whichever class that they were mimicking in the anime, which just makes them as bad as they are. Yeah. So at number 8, I'm going to have to give it to Superhuman. Now, the only reason I would give it to Superhuman is because Superhuman gives you 15% more damage than any other class, and that's just base damage, not multiplied damage like in the abilities. So it gives you 15% more base damage at the start, but its big weakness is that it is very close combat, and that can be pretty annoying compared to the other abilities that are also close combat, but they're extremely high in terms of their speed and able to get out of those situations, as well as the damage reduction, which it doesn't really have that much damage reduction, if any at all. If I double check right now, I can see, yeah, its Awakening doesn't have any damage reduction at all. So for a class to be very close range, you would expect it to have built-in damage reduction, but it just doesn't, which makes it just a fail in terms of which basically just makes it a fail as far as classes go. Which is why I pretty much would never recommend any low-level uses but of course, if you are high level, you can pretty much make any class work with what you have. And at number 9, I'm gonna give it to Cyborg. Cyborg is pretty self-explanatory, because when you play with Alien, its moves are very cool, but they're just not like, none of them have anything that just makes you like, wow, this class is amazing. While Cyborg is at least decent, which is why I'm going to give it that. I'm not even going to go into depth when it comes to Cyborg and Alien because that's just how tired I am of using those classes. But I am going to show you guys a little bit more of what the Alien can do. Of course, now when you guys are seeing the classes that I'm using, you can't really use my gameplay as how your gameplay will work, obviously, because I'm a high level in the game, and when you're as high level as I am, using any class is doable and you're able to make it work. So just take that with a grain of salt when you're looking at me use these classes, and just keep in mind that it'll be a lot different for you. Alright guys, so that is everything I got for y'all for this video. That is the top classes in the game ranked, and why I think that they are what they should be. So if you enjoyed that video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content, then go ahead and subscribe, because I do post every day. I also feel like I definitely deserve some extra likes for that sacrifice I did, because I definitely had Phoenix, y'all. I know y'all knew I had Phoenix, and I gave that up for this video so I can explain to y'all which ones are the best. But it's all right, I do have infinite spin, so I'll go ahead and get it back. It might take me a while, but yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thank you.